Okay, so I got these bad boys installed. They look outstanding. I'm very pleased with them. Next step, I need to order the wire and the railing top. So what Paul Kraft needs from me to get these manufactured is the dimensions from the outer post to the inner post. So what that looks like is this. So when measuring for the wire, notice that there's holes up and down on this outside post, and we're going to want to measure from that post to the corner all the way to here. And I'm going to take two measurement points. One is going to be at the bottom, and the other one is going to be at the top. Now, I'm confident that these are level, but this is just good practice, and Paul recommends just to make sure there's no variance. So I took a measurement from these 2 points. So again, from the bottom hole, strung it over to this side, going on the inside to inside measurement from the bottom hole, and then again on the top hole. Fortunately for me, they were exactly the same. So same is true for the next section. My longest section, 17-footer section. Taking 2 measurements, one at the bottom hole, one at the top hole, and stringing it along to get the length on the inner edge, bottom, and again on the top. And on my third section, same situation. Here to here, and then measurement from here to here. From those measurements, I'll send those down to Paul. He'll get the wire ordered. The 3/16 wire is what we're going with. It's a little heavier gauge. I think it has a better look to it. And then he'll also manufacture the aluminum rail top, and that'll be our next step. So we got the railings back from Paul, and they look fantastic, and we're ready to start mapping these out. So I've laid them out in various sections along the posts. So we'll get started doing that, and then we'll determine where our cuts are going to be, and then move on to screwing them in. So there's a few key pieces in this railing. Obviously the railing itself, and then we have the end caps that will go in at the ends to conceal the sharp edge and obviously make it look nice. And then we have these spacers that tuck in and provide strength on the seams. Now as I start with this end piece, I need to find the cut line here, and then I have to factor in this end piece and to determine the length of that, or the width of this in the calculation. First step here is I'm going to do this long run. I want to install that first, and then that'll be our reference point. So I've got 3 pieces. Now these sections come at maximum 8-foot lengths, but obviously it's not an even 8 foot times 3. So we have 3 pieces that are under 8 feet, and we tried to put the seam a little bit off center from the post and have the weight balance equally across that section of the rail. And then we'll tie in the spacer piece for strength on each seam. So we'll get started with that, and then we'll make our cuts on each end and go from there. This first piece is 7.5 feet long. I'm going to line that up right in the center post. mark the halfway point here. So this is going to be our first one that we fasten in, and then the other two on the ends will follow suit, because that's where our cutting will be at the ends. Quick tip on these white spacer pieces. The seams are going to be snug between the two railing pieces, but just in case, what I'm going to do is go ahead and spray paint this with black spray paint near where the seam is going to be, so that if any of this, if those cuts at the seams are a little bit off, they won't reveal the white to show right through. So just a little bit of spray paint on this section, just in the mid area, should conceal this bright white spacer piece. I'm choosing to install the short ends before I install the long run, getting those squared up and making sure those are correct. And then the long run is where I'll make those cuts on both sides and make sure that's squared up with the two short runs. I had Paul leave me some extra on this end, so then I can have a little give and a little margin for give and take, depending on how long this run's going to be. I'm looking at about 3 inches to be an overhang, and that should be plenty. But if it ends up being a fraction less than that because of my cuts, then that's okay. So I got a lot of forgiveness in this spot. As I laid these out, I discovered a little bit of a variance in my level. As you can see, the way these two sections meet, it's not quite level, and that's surprising me. I'm not going to worry too much about it. When I put that connector piece inside, that'll lay them all flat, and then when I tap in those screws from underneath, that should stabilize the whole run. But it's not what I wanted to see, but we'll make it work. Okay, this is the end near where my stairs are. So I'm going to go 3 inches, which seems a little long. So I'm going to make an audible here, and we're going to go 2 inches. But I'll definitely consult my lead household designer to see what she thinks. But let's start with the 2 inches off the end. Boy, I can't recommend enough the right tools, especially the saw blade and saw that I used here to make this cut. What a difference. Super clean, no charred edges. Got to use the right tools to get the job done right. So can't recommend that enough. I had to make some alterations on my end cap. Seems like these ribbings were not quite appropriate for the ends that I'm using. So I just had to cut back and relieve some of the bulk of that ribbing so that'll fit in nice and snug on my end. Okay, I've got my 2-inch overhang, approximately. And then down at the end, got the end cap in there, and it's all squared up. And it's centered left to right just by looking out there underneath. So we should be able to move forward. I'm using these self-tapping screws, work pretty slick with a normal Phillips head. I put one screw at the end. I'm going to put the next screw here at this end. Center it, should be good. Strangely, I noticed after I put that cap or that end piece and I screwed that in, it pulled it apart slightly, so I can see a gap here, and that is not okay. So I'm going to need to do some modification. Frankly, I'm hoping that when I tighten the wires, that'll pull this together enough to close that gap. Not sure why that happened, but I think the wires should be able to pull that together. Never mind, I just fastened one more post and that seemed to pull it together. Still not completely snug, but I think we'll be okay. Okay, I'm ready for this last long run of rail. I'm gonna square off that end, and so there won't be any cutting needed. I'll just shift everything this way, and we'll make our final cut on the far end. Scratch that. I forgot that I'm using this long piece in the center to equally distribute the seams and the strength of those seams on each side. So I am going to have to do a cut here and a cut on the far end to make it line up. Here's that end piece, and I dry fit it with the center piece where it's positioned correctly. Now I need to make a mark here, see where my end is. Okay, there's my cut line, but I do have to factor in the width of this end cap, because if I want it to line up flush, it's going to be set back slightly. So in actuality, I'm going to set that back, my cut about that far. From here to there will count for the end cap. So it's still gonna line up flush, like so. We'll pull that in tight when I screw this guy down. Okay, next up is this long run, and I've got the connector piece inside. The seam is tight, and second connector one that's tight. Now it's tight. Now my last cut is going to be at the end here. I'm gonna pop that off, and then we'll be good to go and ready. So I think based upon the last run I did and having that seam pull apart slightly, I'm going to go ahead and secure this first piece, screw it in, and then the second hole, and then the third down here. I'll wait because I have to take this piece off so I can cut at the end. So, but I'm going to try to preserve those snug fits on these seams. Okay, got those two posts secured to the rail, and the seams are held snug. Now we're going to go to this end piece measure it up for our last cut. And once again, we're going to factor in the width of this plug. So my cut, this is my most important and most challenging cut because I don't have any forgiveness on either end. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this back slightly. Okay, we got the last cut in, got the connector installed. Now we're going to put the cap in. Basically wanted to make sure I don't need to cut anymore, so I think we're good there. And there's a little tiny bit of play here that I can snug them up to be squared. So I think we're good. One quick tip I have regarding these tapping screws. If you'll notice, the seam where that plastic insert is from about here to about there, and from the space, when I do my screws, see if I can get underneath there. As you can see, I tried drilling those in, but it is hitting into the plastic connector piece, and these self-tapping screws don't like to do that. They want a free entry, so we're gonna have to take these guys out, do a little pilot hole, and then try them again. Okay, I got a 7/64 drill bit. Can go right through that plastic inside there. Okay. Much better. Okay, all the tapping screws are in and the railing is secured. So I'm ready to move on to the wire. So let's do it. Okay, I'm moving on to the wire. I'm going to start with my smallest section right here next to my fireplace. And all I really need are 4 things. I need this wire. I need these tightening ends, or whatchamathingies. I don't know what the name of those things are. These rubber washers and simple old Allen wrench. So, okay, when doing these, the order in which you install them is important. Again, remember the number of holes we have up and down. We're going to start in the middle and then work our way to the ends just to keep it square, because if you start at the top or at the bottom, you'll pull in unnecessarily and take everything out of balance possibly. So that's what we're going to do. So this short run is only from here to there, so it's a great place for me to start, having never done this before. Looks pretty straightforward, so let's count it up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're halfway, we're in the middle out of the 10 rings. I'll slide that through and then take my whatchamathingy piece and then screw that. Let's see, you know what? We did this wrong. This piece should be where we start. So I have this in reverse. This end should be on that side. Okay, let's redo this. Okay, so the way this is gonna work, this is our end piece and this is our tightening piece. So we did this backwards, so we have to feed this through. That's why we needed all that space behind there. You can see how it would be a challenge if I had any tighter than that. There we go. Yeah, that's about as narrow a space that you want to do. Then you take this, forgot the washer again. We're going to include the rubber washer, and it's going to thread right through like this. The idea is that because this is going to be pulled through really snug, there's a possibility that this metal piece will scratch the powder coating, causing a vulnerable point for corrosion and or rusting. So, all right, we'll try that again. So this is the correct size. And the opposite side has its rubber washer, and this side, I get it now. I get it. So now this guy, get the washer on there, check. We can tighten that, I see, with the threads as tight as it needs to go. Genius. Okay, so it's fairly loose. Let me use my Allen wrench. Tighten that. Not completely snug, but pretty good for the first one. Then we'll continue on with the other three. All right, we're done. So stringing these through was a piece of cake. Biggest thing was to remember to put the washer on and on each end, and we did, and everything turned out fantastic. So I will take some final shots, some stills, and then put those in here. But for now, it feels really good. The wires, they're going to need to continue to need tensioning, tightening. As I was screwing the 10 at the end on each run, they sure do loosen up on the opposite side. So got to find a perfect balance as you're tightening them. And yeah, how cool is that? This is awesome. We're super happy and couldn't be more pleased. Looking forward to this deck for many years to come. And yeah, job done, very satisfied. Thanks, Paul, for all your help. See you next time. Of course, you've got your two drivers and screwdrivers with the spider bit and the 3/16 drill bit for making pilot holes. Of course, you need your level. I would have preferred to have a 4-foot level, but this little guy worked fine with the help of a 2x4. My little kicker board that helped be my second set of hands while holding up the heavy stainless steel posts. Tape measure, of course, and then I used a sheetrock squaring measure thing, whatever you call those deals, T-square. That worked great, then it can lay flat on the deck surface to get your measurement from the surface to the bottom of the, or to the top of the post. Line level, I used a couple of just regular screws to tack in place on those two the end pieces that were tricky, that needed to be adjusted before you permanently screw them in. A line, of course, you've got your lag screws with the spider bit to use with them, and then the two-sided washers with the rubber insulation. And I think that's about it. Good weather, good attitude, and a square deck to start from.